creates opportunities for others to be themselves. Jen has helped countless couples navigate their wedding days and always loves a good creative boost in helping design, styled shoots, and conceptual ideas. A large portion of her passion and drive is connecting with others through creativity and self-expression. Jen's wedding was filled with inspiration from the Blue Man Group theater show, and this year she renewed her vows after 18 years of marriage on the Kid Craddock in the Morning radio show. Everybody give it up for Jen.
Well, I have my thingamabobber, so you get to keep that. Hopefully the thingamabobber's working, right? Sounds like it. Good to see everybody. I ate really fast, just like you do at a wedding. You're working a wedding, and you're like, blah, 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 blah. So I am Jen, let's see here. Yeah, there I am, Jen Shulock. I am with Pink Light Images as my mothership brand, but Weirdo Weddings is my new baby. Literally about 3 years old, so I've got a nice toddler going. So today's talk is gonna be super, super fun, because some of you in the room know how hard I've been working behind the scenes for the last 3 years on this brand here. And so I feel it's such an honor to speak to my Dallas people today. So I haven't yet shared this in Dallas, but I shared this in Florida, and the Florida crowd was amazing, so I can't wait to share it here with y'all. So this is a look at how 19 styled wedding shoots they basically transformed my career. And the reason why it's 19, we'll get into this later, but it's super fun to just kind of like look at styled shoots in a different way that maybe you haven't thought of before. So today's talk is gonna be a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of personal story, but also creativity. And I love that as business owners, we love doing creative things. And this is for you guys. Let me know if you're paying attention. So now you've been privy to what happens at Blue Man Group when they want to get your attention. You just simply please yell. A little about me, you won't really need to know too much. I have cats, I have a daughter, she's a 6-year-old. I played with AI once and came out with this stupid lightning background, and I thought it was hilarious. And you can see pictures of me getting my vow renewal on Kid Craddock in the morning, and also attending Blue Man Group or dressing as the Crow or Weird Barbie. So I have a lot of fun with a lot of things. Ever since Weird Barbie came out, I feel like I have to show up everywhere. Today you do not get Weird Barbie, but close enough. This is just a few things. Again, been a photographer for a really, really long time, but I've been creative my entire life. So it's just the things over and over again. One of the newest things that's exciting is I started a podcast called Tattoos and Toddlers. So, and as you know, like anybody with tattoos has got some kind of story behind the tattoos, but I also like talking to business owners about what it's like to balance parenting and caretaking with your business. So that's my newest podcast. And yeah, I have, actually my newest tattoo is from Las Vegas. Did anybody else go to Wedding MBA this year? Did you know you can go get $10 tattoos down the street from the convention center? So I went to Vegas and Wedding MBA and got a little spaceship. It was awesome. I also want to let you know, I'm going to give you a tiny bit of my resume just so you know I'm a real person and all that. And last year Sony called me up and I got to do a series on YouTube with Brooke Shaden from Sony. She's a Sony representative. I shoot Canon. It doesn't matter to me. Creativity is creativity. But I did this whole series with her on facing creativity and confronting fear, which is literally what I'm doing up here on the stage. Gibbering away is like it shaking, but I'm gonna tell you my story anyway. And this is just some of my resumes where, I've gotten featured in places, I've reached out to places, and I've let my voice be heard and let my couples' voices be heard. And I was like, as much as I love standing up on stage, I love representing my weirdos out here. And so this is just a few places where I got to be a part of that and just rock it out, you know what I mean? So the backstory on Weirdo Weddings photography, I'm super proud of this now slimy logo because it just gets straight to the point. When I first started Weirdo Weddings, it was in 2020 after I was potty training my 3-year-old. And teaching somebody a life skill takes a lot out of you. And I had to decide if I was gonna continue to be a photographer or not. And so as I started thinking about what I do as a photographer, I started to think about all the people that I serve. And in the fine art community, which I've been a part of since about 2012, we all call ourselves weirdos anyway. And I noticed that nothing is like this in the wedding industry at all. And I was like, that could be good or bad. And choosing the word weirdo is a kind of a tricky thing. It could be really bad or it could be really good. And so I thought to myself, choosing this name means about 50% are gonna get it, 50% are gonna be like, ooh. which I was okay with. But this is what was born out of. It was I still want to be a photographer, but now I really want to get to the point of who I'm here to serve. And I have been loving the feedback over the last 3 years. It's been amazing to see my clients resonate with this word and what I offer. So when starting Weirdo Weddings, I was like, you know what, I've got some great clientele, but I'm not a high volume wedding photographer. My goal was always 12 to 15. And you know when you're pulling from your old stuff and it just doesn't work anymore? Like as a photographer and artist, or even your designs that you did 10 years ago are different than the designs you do now. I knew I couldn't pull from the stock I already had. So there's a lot of things I had to think about when it came to starting this new brand. And this whole talk is about expanding your brand, which is exactly what I did. Told you I've been in business for 16, Weirdo Weddings is only 3. So Weirdo Weddings is an expansion of what I was already doing. It's I like calling it a hyper niche focused area of photography. And so the first things I had to think about was, do I need to do styled wedding shoots? I have failed miserably at them. I didn't know how to do them. And I was like, I guess I should probably set some up. And I was like, well, I have to do social media because this is where our culture is. Always have to make content creation. I have multiple platforms. I'm gonna eventually put together a talk on like the octopus of marketing and just how many arms does it take to get our businesses out there? And then of course, live events, because at this point, live events were happening again. So you kind of needed to get out there and show up for your people. And I also thought to myself, why does it matter to add in styled shoots or making new content for a new brand that's brand new? Like, why did it matter? And I thought to myself, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about these wonderful Dallas wedding pros and some of these people in this room have been a part of this. And it was something that, it was bigger than myself, not because I needed the content, but it was bigger because I felt like some of the wedding pros needed a creative boost, or they needed a place to try a new idea. So I want to show you what happened when I started working with some local wedding pros here, and what we all came up with. This is kind of where the inspiration comes in, like where we start telling our couples, what would they do on a wedding day? What would I be in this headspace with these couples? So we're gonna start with Kate here, who happens to be in the room. This is like serendipitous. She's like, I never come to these things. And I was like, what are the odds that our little reindeer over here is in the room today to hear this talk again? But honestly, our relationship is what started this whole whirlwind effect of this new brand. It's like, I needed to get with people who understood what I was trying to do. And I also needed people to just be okay with being who they were and trying new ideas. And I know this is only one of many of her creations. We'll get into that. But she said that breaking away from the standards and trying something new was what she needed at these styled shoots. And then I thought to myself, well, I guess I need that too. I'm breaking away from what I would call traditional marketing, traditional couples, and I'm trying to like make this whole new world for all these weirdos out here. So kind of the same thing. And I love the fact that this is me too. Does anybody get up at 2 a.m. in the morning and write stuff down? I know I have. I email myself all the time. I'm only 3 years into a smartphone too, so it's like I'm learning how to like voice message and do all this fun stuff. And it's super fun. I love the creative process. So Helga was fantastic because she's an October baby. She was born on Halloween. But she also said that one of her favorite parts was getting to be, dress up in costume at our styled shoot. And I thought it was important to note here that if you're doing styled shoots in this room, how many of y'all do styled shoots still, or you find them still relevant? I still find them relevant, especially if I have an idea I need to get out. Helga was very appreciative that we included an officiant. And I think that was kind of important. That's kind of where I'm going with how I work at styled shoots. But I just wanted to leave some of these beautiful voices on here because what they said changed their lives about these styled shoots is also the same thing that happened to me. So, and same thing with Jasmine here. This is our little Wizard of Oz couple. Jasmine was just beautiful. We kind of went with this Glinda-esque, kind of a look for her. But it was like, she took this character, and it's very much like cosplay where you're designing an outfit for yourself you may never wear, but why wouldn't you do it at a theme wedding? So Jasmine had a lot of fun working with her wardrobe to find something, and then, of course, I bought that ridiculous headband on Amazon, and it was just fabulous to photograph. And we had so much fun with it. And so that Jasmine was really just, you could tell, her smile says everything. And Trisha, this is a really good friend of mine now. Trisha isn't not just a model anymore. She's become a friend and she's become a creative confidant. And she was so scared to try anything new, and I'm talking about anything creatively. She's not in the wedding industry at all, but she is a creative. And I think a lot of creatives they get stuck, or they're in their head too much and they never go do the things that they're supposed to do. So I really love that she wrote that she says, I wanted to try new things, and boy did she. When I started working with her, she helps me do shows sometimes. We'll work with resin. Has anybody worked with resin before, where you mix the two things together, right? And you hope it comes out okay, and you put it in a mold maybe. Okay, well, I was scared to do resin. And she was like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna go do it. And I was like, oh my God. You know what? She inspired me to go do resin. So I was having fun with resin, believe it or not. I was like, I'm not afraid to try things because I meet people who, they just help me overcome fears too. And I think that's a beautiful thing about Styled Shoots, is they brought us all together, and then we're encouraging each other and inspiring each other. This is another officiant who I work with consistently at the Renaissance Festivals. Does anybody go to the Renaissance Festivals locally? I know Pamela does. We got Scarborough and TRF and all that. So Mark is an officiant in one of those festivals. And so he said it was good for him to be around other people that aren't his normal routine. And how many of us know that our routines can get routine, even if you're doing stuff that's fun? So I love that Mark added that in, because he was a pleasure to work with, as always. And so my beautiful friend Yashe, she's helped me set up something in Kansas City. I did 4 styled shoots in one day, and she's just a rock star. And she's like, I left so inspired, I wanted to keep doing more. And I was like, let's do more. Let's do some more. So we did 4 in one day. This is us jumping the broom. It's a fun shot, super fun. And as you know, some of y'all may know about Lizzie Gator up in Pilot Point, Texas. They built this from the ground up, and I think that's what was inspiring about this property, is that they are at heart artists and they're creatives, but they execute their vision so well, it makes me jealous sometimes. I don't do landscaping, I don't do sculpting, but I really love what they put together. And if y'all haven't followed them or seen their work, you might as well just schedule a tour and go see it. But Lizzie's always in some kind of a costume, if she's working or not working. But Chris and Lizzie have been a part of this whole journey with me. So we all sat down together. It just happened to be me, Kate, and Lizzie. Like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? We need to do something fun. So this is where a lot of my things come in from, working with other people that are very like-minded. But the thing about Lizzie is that her response to this really shook me for a second, because she didn't think she had the confidence to style other people, but it almost came naturally. And I was like, how does she not have the confidence? The more styled shoots we did, the more confidence she got. And she said that she styled a music video of like 18 to 19 people. And I was like, really? You were nervous about that? Like, she's so good. Like, she's really good, but she just had no idea. And so I love the fact that she said that, because I was like, well, that makes me feel good. I feel like we all got together, we inspired each other, and now we're just doing things we never thought we would do. And me, okay, this is my little story here. Not a floral designer, not a planner, but boy, am I proud of my little palm frond shield here. I was in San Francisco, and we did 4 in one day on this beach, and I had leftovers from my friend, and I said, I want to make something. And so I made this shield, and it turns out that this lady, she was wearing a Lord of the Rings, like the One Ring. And I was like, this feels like it goes with you. She's kind of elvish with a little bit of spiders, and I was like, this floral is for you. And so they still have it to this day somehow. I don't know if that gets dried somewhere. I don't know what they look like when they're dried, but I was so proud of this one. So this is what helped me. I'm not a floral designer, but I wanted to do something out of the box for myself too. So when we're talking about expanding your brand, and this is not about Jen telling you her story, this is really about, are you thinking about your own life right now and your own brand? Are you happy with where you're at? Have you been challenged enough to stay where you are or move forward? Some of y'all are probably doing just fine. When I started at Weirdo Weddings, I knew there was a lot of unknown things that were gonna happen. I knew that a lot of things, and I'm a Star Trek nerd, so you'll see a lot of the starship in here, because I feel like when you go out into the middle of space, you don't know what you're in for. So when I started expanding, I was like, well, I know my people, but I don't know what this looks like for me. I don't know where this is really gonna go. So to me, it means unknown territory. And I like to use this a lot too, because I said this yesterday when I was talking with somebody. Some of us already follow a path that's already laid out, right? A lot of us go to school for things. We take classes for things. We follow somebody else's blueprint as a business owner. We all do it. We've all done it. Photography is the same. You get your camera, you learn how to use it, and there's a recipe for making the image, and whether it's creative or technical. But the thing about starting a new brand or expanding what you already have is that you may actually not follow a traditional path. You may be walking on a rocky beach. You might be walking on a paved area through the city. For me, I felt like this journey has been chopping my way through a jungle that I can't see anything. And I always think about Romancing the Stone when he handed her the machete, and he's like, well, whatever, you cut it yourself. You cut your own path. And so he hands her the knife, and she does. She picks it up. But I love her face here because that's literally how I felt. Like, what am I going to do with this thing? Like, I don't know. And then, of course, Star Trek, when they tell you in the opening of each show, you're boldly going somewhere. And I think it takes a lot of boldness to start something new, to start something that's beyond you. Because with all these words here, fear, adventure, unknown, rest, reflection, exploration, boldness, and energy, it takes energy to start something new. It takes energy to bypass all your fears and walk into something new, or in this case, fly in a spaceship. So I love when people have secrets and recipes because it's all psychology. You know, they're like, oh, I've got your answer. I don't know how many y'all got. How many Black Friday emails did y'all get? Because I got way too many. I've got this for 20% off. I've got the solution to all your problems. And I'm like, no, you don't. But I was like, I like adding this in because some of us are looking for 5 keys. We want 5 keys. We want 3 ways. We want 5 steps. And I'm like, but sometimes you kind of have to make it up as you go, and you have to make up your own recipe. I am not a cook. My husband will tell you that. But I can bake some stuff, but it takes a recipe to bake stuff. So I feel like some of us are making our own recipes and also carving our own paths. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Now here's the whole talk is called 19 Styled Shoots, and I wanted to tell you why it was 19. It's just because that's at the end of the year, and this is a very important question. If y'all are like overworkers or you're addicted to work or whatever, you never stop to think about what you've done for the year. How many of y'all have stopped already this year and maybe celebrated what you've done this year? Like, any hands going up yet? Or are you just still in the thick of it and you're like, I haven't celebrated anything. I haven't yet. I'm gonna sit down, I promise, in the next couple of weeks. But at the end of the year, I was like, I did 19 styled shoots, that's crazy. Why did I do that to myself? And then I did 4 in one day twice. Yeah, I just still can't believe I did that. I look at my friends every time I talk to them, I'm like, I can't believe we did that. It's crazy. But I kind of want to walk you through what I kind of see as an expansion, how to expand your brand. Again, this is part of my story, but I think you can take some of these things today and apply them to your own brands. No matter what you do, no matter what service industry you're in, no matter what creative industry you're in, you can always take a little bit with you and then expand yourself. So we have expectations, we have the X factor, the process, the anatomy, what you need to know, and some direction. Personally, my part at the end is the funnest part, because while you're doing styled shoots to expand your brand, you're like, well, what are you gonna do with them when you're done? I mean, that's kind of where I'm going with this. So anytime you're doing a styled shoot or anytime you're putting together something, you're always gonna have expectations. And some of this is very simple stuff, but I do think simplicity is good to remember. As we're coming into this new year, we need to remember that sometimes simpler is better. And then laying out all the expectations and everybody who's involved. And in this particular shoot right here, we had the Good Omens theme. And what's great about working with thematic weddings, which I really love, or taking a thematic style shoot and making it interesting, is the couples usually want to get creative. And this particular couple is more of a non-binary. They're not even really, they identify how they want to identify. But they had fun with styling themselves as these main characters of Good Omens, which is, Aziraphale and Crawley. So if you haven't seen it, Crawley is, I believe it's David Tennant. And so he's very, very interesting dynamics. But yeah, the expectations of when you're putting things together for any kind of expansion in your brand is awesome. Just lay it out, be honest with yourself. The X factor is just, I was joking the last time I did this talk. I was like, what else am I going to say about X? X-Files, X factor, X anything? Just because I wanted to have something that said expand. But I think when we're thinking about expanding our brand, you kind of need to ask the hard questions about what actually makes you different. Like I knew right away what makes me different is that I have a voice, I have a very unique perspective, and could list off 5 or 6 things that make you unique. But how are you gonna set yourself apart from anybody else? That's kind of where I was going with this. Like how are you going to expand into a place, and sometimes contract down into a place of hyper niching even, in your brand? What are you gonna offer that's different? I think it's important to ask yourself that right before the new year, right? Like maybe you wanna make some changes, but you've been too scared to make changes. Or maybe you haven't had time to make changes. I think some of us have been so busy, we forget that we need to make a few changes here and there. I know, I'm looking forward to the winter now because I'm gonna have to slow down just a little bit and think and work on my studio at the house, you know, that kind of stuff. So there's always a process when you're expanding into anything. When you're letting yourself think bigger, it's easy to get caught up in the speed of which you're going. Now, a lot of people want to take shortcuts, and you know, we have everybody doing AI and ChatGPT and all these wonderful bots and things that help us do our work better and help our workflow. But I think even in this kind of stuff, when you're really digging deep into who you are and what you want to show the world, you can't shortcut it. And it's kind of like a sad thing to say that you have to walk through it. You can't go around it. You can't ignore it because it won't go away. And I'm just like, you can't skip it. And this is what I've had to walk through. I've had to walk through every trial that has come against me, everything, and mostly in my head that I've had to overcome. And then I have to get out here and talk to people about it. Ew, scary. It's all a process though. I'm not scared of it anymore. The anatomy, I love this cake because I don't know if y'all heard the music as when this event started, but they were playing Phantom of the Opera in here. And this was from our Phantom of the Opera style shoot that was fantastic. And about 5 minutes later, the candles like completely melted and started falling on the cake. But I had found this candelabra thing and I just added it to this. It's kind of like a fake cake, but my friend Grace did. But the thing I love about what you're doing in your work, in your expansion, and sometimes using styled shoots, there's layers to it. And I think, you know, the cake layers is a perfect example. You know, some of the layers, they make sense, and sometimes they stack up on top of each other. And the reason why I put I'm not a wedding planner on here is because when I made Weirdo Weddings, I didn't put photography in my name. And that's kind of a bad thing because everybody thought I was a planner because I had so much knowledge and so much inspiration about their wedding day, they didn't realize I was a photographer. I never said, oh, I'm a photographer. So I changed it a little bit. I changed it to Weirdo Weddings Photography instead of just Weirdo Weddings. But yeah, everybody thought I was a planner. And even people I introduced myself as a photographer, she says, oh, I thought you were a planner. I was like, I never said I was a planner. I planned all these styled shoots. That was crazy, but yeah, it was a lot of work. And that's when I realized I bow down to the wedding planners of the world. How many planners do we have in here? Because I just want to give you a high five, seriously. Because planning these styled shoots was hard enough, and they were little. I was like, nope, not a wedding planner, which is fabulous. So anyway, I feel like there's layers to when you want to spin off. I like thinking of what I did in my photography business as like a spin-off show, right? You have your main character, say, what's the one with Sheldon? The Big Bang Theory. And then they spin it off with young Sheldon. I like also thinking, I told y'all in the beginning, I still am a Blue Man Group fan. You have Broadway and you have off-Broadway. So I like the fact that I could take my little piece of this brand and like move it into a little house of its own. So you can just kind of take what you love about your business that's already working, but maybe you want to focus in on something else. And it could be a separate website. You can make it different. I have a wonderful wedding planner in Seattle she's much more, we'll call it luxury brand, but she has this deep want to run into the forest and do like these really interesting offbeat, kind of like alternative meets Halloween types of weddings. But she's afraid to do that because she doesn't feel like she can probably combine it on her website, right? So I was like, at that point, you just need to just separate them and just say, hey, I do this over here and then do this over here. So that's just me wanting to solve her problem. I was like, because right now my website's a mess, it's gonna get better, but like you have to be clear about what you're niching into and be okay with talking about it, whatever it looks like for you. The need to know, this is just the basics of when you're setting up styled shoots. Y'all already know this. You're amazing. You're probably setting up all kinds of stuff. You have paperwork. You have expectations that you put down on the paperwork. Everybody signs it, and be as detailed as possible when you're working with these things. This lovely couple was another Kansas City couple. We had a great time putting it together. Again, we let them style themselves with the intention of just bringing in a handful of people to be a part of it. So you had this cute little bow tie that Kanya's wearing, and then Kimberly styled herself with this amazing black giant tutu, which is all fluffy and super cool, and she had her cool little gothic crown on. Super fun. So, and this is my favorite part, about taking your styled shoots and your brand out there, is that once it's done, once you've made some content, once you've taken some photos, once you've talked to your photographer, what are you gonna do with them once you are done? And when I started working with Lizzie and Kate on this kind of stuff, we knew right away we wanted to start moving into visibility. And if y'all haven't noticed, visibility is actually a pretty big deal when you're trying to get out there and start your business, because everything seems to move online. You're at events. I see Chris at every single event. I don't know how Chris does it. I mean, it's just visible, 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 right? You start to see people and you're like, oh, I saw you there. I saw you there. You're online. You're visible online. So when you're starting a new brand, you have to have a clear direction on what you're doing with your brand and the content that's going with it. So I like to think of it also, it's just beyond you and your team. You know, you and the 5 to 6 people that put together this photo shoot, or you put together this event, it's gonna go beyond that if everybody shares the content, if everybody tags the content, everybody shares it to everybody else. This sounds very easy, but I just find that we're spending less time sharing other people's work and we're only sharing our work. But when you start getting into blogs and magazines and getting on podcasts, and yes, looking at TV spots even, short form videos, and doing the content that you know that needs to be done these days, and then interviews. How many of y'all just like, have you ever done an interview about your business or an interview with people you've worked with? Like just sat down and just for fun, interview each other as wedding pros. I mean, it doesn't sound fun. I interviewed Kate and Lizzie in one video for Wizard of Oz because I was like, we need to talk about our processes. Why don't we just sit down and do a long form video? It doesn't hurt you. You can chop it up later and use it. It's great. So this is what I'm talking about when we talk about direction with your brand. Is all these things can work together. That's, again, the octopus. I really want to put something together like that. It'd be super fun. Examples, this is where we're going with this. I was like, I love seeing examples. I love taking whatever ideas you have right now that you're sitting on, what are you gonna do to execute them? And are you going to? I'd love to, y'all tag me later if you're gonna do something fun, because I wanna know. So our intention when we started, Kate, Lizzie, and I, part of the reason why this started is because of my personal failures at styled shoots. Kate had some experiences at styled shoots where she didn't feel like she could be free to be creative. And I think that's what really ignited me, is that knowing that we have a free spirit in Lizzie, we have a free spirit inside of Kate too, very professional, amazing person, but she's got ideas. And she's like, I want to do arm cuffs and I want it draping down. And I'm like, that sounds great. When did you draw that image? You drew it in the middle of the night, right? You drew it in the middle of the night. She sends me the sketch and I'm like, oh, we have to do that. And I was like, it wasn't my idea, but encouraging somebody else's ideas is, especially when you're genuinely, authentically supporting each other and you're running with these ideas, this is how this cover started. This is how we got the cover. I worked really hard with Lizzie, I worked really hard with Kate. This is actually, Kate's so invested in this is her daughter. I mean, she's, the daughter just took it, the character ran with it. You can't see the flowers as well, there's a giant bouquet right there. But she wanted to do these arm cuffs, and we just made the Bride of Frankenstein look amazing. I love this quirky alternativeness. Lizzie brought in the neck collar, and I was like, what are you doing? What does this mean? But it all worked. And I think if something, the thing I love about Lizzie, and working with Lizzie, is that she will be over the top, and you have to almost edit her down. But as a photographer, I'm used to working with editing, so I'm like, Lizzie, it's too much. Let's edit it down just a little bit. But it's fabulous because every time she styles somebody, I get really inspired. So this is on the cover. It's just a statement to a goal, having a goal with your brand, having a goal with your team, and then getting something done. Now, I haven't done a cover since, because it's exhausting to try to put stuff together like this sometimes. And it's like writing a blog for me. I hate writing. A lot of work to get this stuff done. And the fact that they took it was amazing, because I got rejected from the first one, and I was just like, I'm quitting everything, quitting all of the things I ever wanted to do. This brand is not gonna work. People aren't gonna get it. Everything I could tell myself, I told myself. And because I was very let's checklist. Wrong. Okay, maybe she did that, okay. But this is just a testament to me. Every time I look at it, I get excited all over again, because we have the print copies. We have the print copies, and we're just excited to look at it. It's so much fun. But the direction that you need to take your brand, have some ideas. A lot of people don't care to do this stuff. A lot of people don't think it matters. Honestly, it's great, it's fabulous. This is part of my resume, but it is not my identity. So this is just fun things I've done. It doesn't mean that it makes me any better or worse than you. I'm probably not even the best photographer. It's great. But I get to be me. I think that's the point. The point of this talk is, how do you get to be you? Don't be me, be you. Take your work out there into the world. So this one is a really great one too, because as we were talking about expanding into brands, we're also talking about representation and inclusivity. I'm sure you've had a lot of that talked about in the last 3 years. We've talked about everything. There's a lot of times where I thought I was being inclusive, but my online representation was not, and I had no idea until 3 years ago when I got on Clubhouse and talked to everybody incessantly for hours and hours and hours on the audio platform. And we were talking about, what does it take to be, feel seen? What does it take to be, I saw myself at one point, and it wasn't the singer Pink that I saw the pink hair. It was somebody else that I knew that had pink hair. And it just so happened that Pink was like Pink at the time. And I was like, no, it's not because of Pink that I'm Pink. It's because a friend of mine named Lenny. The whole point is that representation in your styled shoots and whatever things you're putting together also matters. When I started doing styled shoots, and I told you I failed miserably, it's because it felt fake, like really fake. I know it's fake, but it felt really fake. And I could not figure out what it was. And what happened was, instead of just doing stations, I know some of y'all do stations. A lot of people work with stations. They just set up here's a station, here's a station. As a photographer, I realized I can't work that way. I realized I actually have to have a fake event. I have to walk them down the aisle, and which is funny because, again, not a planner, but I'm like yelling at people, okay, I need you to look at each other. Okay, now do a fake ring exchange. Now do some fake vows. Just laugh at me and like, yeah, just run through it like a real wedding. Because these are the shots that I need, and I can't have you fake it. I can't have you pose it. It's not real if you're not you're moving. And real weddings, they're in motion all the time. I said, I can't do a styled shoot like that. So these two were an exception to the rule. They're not a real couple, but the representation mattered is what we were going for. We were going for a non-binary kind of you pick what you want to wear kind of a thing. These are genuine people, genuine amazing people in Kansas City. But what this image did was inspire a whole week of non-binary fashion in the wedding industry on Offbeat Wed. I think it's important to highlight that because one choice that you make with an image that you created or an event that you did can inspire somebody else to run out there and do something like this and have other people be seen and heard and visible. So I think it's important to remember that your work does matter, even if it's just a photo that you throw up on a Facebook post. Sometimes it really connects deeper on deeper levels, which I'm fabulous. I love this image. It makes me smile every time. But it's important to understand that sparked a whole week of fashion. Like we do New York Fashion Week. I mean, come on. Why can't we have Offbeat Fashion Week? This is where it gets really fun because this is our newest one. And the really fun thing is that I was telling a story the last couple of times that when getting together with Lizzie and Kate, you never know what you're gonna get. We have ideas and they all kind of come together. And this one I was kind of heavy-handed in because I had this idea of blending the lion with the scarecrow, and I just desperately wanted this funnel veil for the Tin Man. I just desperately wanted it. And Kate flies on in, and I said, something's missing from this table. Something is missing, and I don't know what it is. I had the deep greens, and I had some ruby reds on the table. But then she shows up with these beautiful yellow flowers as our yellow brick road, and I could not have been. It's like we didn't even have to read each other's minds. It was awesome. And that's when you know you have a great team, when you start thinking about things. And even if you haven't spoken, your brain waves are all saying the same thing. It's fantastic. So the publication and media journey with this one was different. And again, this was the most recent one that we did. And we got picked up by the magazine, but we were gonna be in spring. And you know when you shoot something in the winter and you have to wait 8 months? I mean, it's exhausting. It's just, I don't like it. I don't like waiting. I'm very impatient. But they closed their doors right before they published. So we had been waiting 8 months, and they completely shut down. Literally, she wiped the website, she wiped all social media. Anything I'd ever done with them is gone. And I'm calling my team crying, saying, oh my God, they closed. This is so terrible. It was Outrageous Bride, and she had other priorities happening in her life, and I applaud her for doing that. But it's heartbreaking when you want your work out there and it just slams the door right in your face. And I went immediately to Offbeat Wed and I said, can y'all take us, because Outrageous Bride just closed and I don't know what to do with myself and my team, and I don't want to let anybody down, and I know it's just a styled shoot, but this is my brand. This is our work. We're so proud of our work, aren't we, Kate? And this is Grace's cake right here, where she sculpted these little, she sculpted it. It's steampunk meets, the Wizard of Oz, and so we were so fortunate to be picked up by Offbeat Wed. A month later, we were published in Offbeat Wed blog. But also what I decided to do, and like we were talking about expanding our brands, is that I decided to do the vendor interviews. For whatever we did together, I interviewed on why did they choose what they chose? Why did they make the cake that way? Why did they do the fashion that way? What was my vision and why did I feel like I had to have this funnel veil? I just was obsessed with that idea. I was like, please. And when you have a great team that can pull off your ideas, I think that is such a beautiful place to be. And don't let them go. If you can help it, keep them as your friends. So I also did, here's a cool thing that y'all may not have heard of, but a friend of mine named Brian, he does vows and speeches for people. He will write stuff for people that are too scared to do their own vows or their own speeches at events and weddings. So what I did for Brian was I ended up recording his vows for him, because I was like, I can't take a picture of it necessarily. Words are kind of invisible unless I type them out and print them, which I ended up doing. But I just, taking as a photographer, I had to leave everybody that was a part of the event needed something from the event. As a photographer, I'm responsible for making sure everybody gets a photo of something, correct, Jody? We know. So when you're doing these types of things, everybody's getting something. So the vows, I recorded them for him, I sent him the video. You can reuse all the content from all this, because, and the great thing about the Wizard of Oz, it is non-seasonal. I feel like it's non-seasonal. You can make it any season you want when you're doing these kinds of themes. So I just felt like it was a timeless way to just express ourselves, and we had such a fun time with it. So what I want to leave you with also today is that this is an ongoing process, and I'm continually in transformation right now. I feel like I'm in another season again where transformation is happening, and the path is still not clear. I'm still chopping through the jungle, but doggone it, I'm having more fun now than I did last year. And it's really hard. It's a time commitment, it's a process commitment, it's a trust factor, because I think a lot of us don't trust ourselves to know when to pull back or when to move forward. And so sometimes we waffle back and forth. Like I tell people, it's not about 2 steps forward and 1 step back, it's about doing a cha-cha. If you have seen the dance, the cha-cha, I used to do it in Zumba all the time. You're going forward and you're going back. And sometimes you're going to the side and you're going to this side. So it's like, life is literally a cha-cha, and especially in the creative industry where our seasons are up and down and sideways and we're doing little spins like, wee. Think about it as your life is a cha-cha. It will help you. It'll help you through those dark times. And of course, what keeps us going? The 2 P's down there. I know there's more P's. Perseverance and passion will always get us through the times that are frustrating, that are dark, that you're overcome with fear. Anything in your life that feels like a dark place, your perseverance and passion will take you right through it. That's what happens with me every time. Guess what? You have homework. Okay, when is the last time? Let's see, has anybody reintroduced themselves to society in the last week or two, like a full post of who I am, what I do, and how I serve you, I don't see a lot of hands up, so we got some homework. Hey, awesome. People do not remember what you do, believe it or not. They need to be reminded. Now, 2 months ago when I did this talk, Kate had done it literally the week I was coming out to speak. So I haven't done it in a while either. So guess what? Go to any social media outlet of your choice. You need to reintroduce yourself to what you do, what you're passionate about. Tell something about yourself that maybe nobody knows. Y'all know now I'm a Blue Man Group fan. I had a Blue Man Group theme wedding. Tell something quirky about yourself. I want to learn more about you. And then I want you to tag a friend, one of your friend or vendors, tag me too, because I want to see. There's no way I'm going to meet everybody today, but I was like, I want to see who you are, what you do, and I want you to share something fun about yourself. It could be ridiculous. And this is how we find connection, though. If I hadn't said I'm a Blue Man Group fan, you know how people might come to me afterwards, oh, I saw Blue Man Group in Las Vegas, it was fantastic. Or I went to New York City and I saw it off Broadway. So you want to talk about who you are and what you do. Don't be afraid. And if you're trying something new, share that with people too. Or if you're scared, share that too. Q&A, if there's any questions, answers, or comments, if you want to tell me I'm ridiculously long-winded, that's fine too. This is the third time I've done it, but it's different every single time, and it's just because it is what it is, and it's creative and fun, and obviously I've done a lot of work in the last 3 years to get this stuff out here.